Starting all the way back in the far distant past of 2013, we take a look at the E3 Sony conference Destiny gameplay trailer. About halfway through the trailer, we see our protagonist kill Rixus, and an exotic drops for them.
Yes, we did it. Well, mainly I did it.
We're not going to talk about that.
All right, let's grab our loot.
And, of course, this exotic is Thunderlord.
That looks good. The Thunderlord.
This is the very first look we have at this exotic, and Destiny in general. The demo also shows us the original perk upgrade tree.
Heavy machine gun. Nice.
The top talent's my favorite, but you'll probably never get there.
Oh yeah? What's up top?
Along with some grade A shooting from our protagonist here during a public event. Bungie had also talked about it in a Destiny drawing board, showing us artwork of the weapon along with a brief description of what it was. And with the launch of Destiny, Thunderlord became available to players for the first time, with its stats and perks being revealed as well. Its main perks were Feeding Frenzy and Lightning Rounds. Feeding Frenzy just increased reload speed for getting a kill, and Lightning Rounds made it so holding the trigger increased rate of fire and accuracy the longer it was held. It also had a chance to create a Firefly-like explosion on kills. It originally had a magazine of only 38, as it was a slow rate of fire machine gun. Its description read, "They rest quiet on fields afar, for this is no ending, but the eye." We may not know how exactly this weapon was made or created. We however do know that an unnamed Titan had created it during the Great Disaster. It was during the battle where Crota's army was fighting the Guardians that this unknown Titan created the first Thunderlord, along with its siblings, Nova Mortis and Abaddon, the Void and Solar versions of Thunderlord respectively. At this point in the timeline, the previously mentioned Nova Mortis and Abaddon were lost after the battle, it seems. Interestingly, in the Destiny webcomic called Warmind, Zavala is shown to be wielding Thunderlord. However, this comic is depicting the Battle of Twilight Gap, which takes place before the Great Disaster. This however may just be an oversight, as it is confirmed that Thunderlord was created during the Great Disaster. The Grimoire card for Thunderlord also reads, "The weapon's history and mechanism are both shrouded in ritualistic awe. Each round fired is another word in the legend, and the guardians who bear the Thunderlord will be immortalized in song." During its time in Year 1, it had some patches made to it as well. On September 7th, 2014, Update 1.0.1, machine guns in general had its projectile networking improve. On September 8th, 2015, Update 2.0.0, machine guns were given a 5% buff to damage against combatants. However, in this update, they also nerfed quite a bit of the Year 1 minor perks to renormalize against Year 2 weapon lethality. So Thunderlord's minor perks nerf goes as followed. Accurized Ballistics range and damage bonus reduced by 50%, Field Choke's damage bonus was reduced by 50% and range reduced by 60%, and also reduced the stability penalty by 20%. Linear Compensator reduces damage by 50%, Perfect Balance reduces stability by 40%, Field Scout no longer affects the magazine, instead affects the inventory, and the inventory bonus was reduced by 37%, and Flared Magwell reduced reload bonus by 80%. With the release of the Taken King, a lot of exotics were changed, buffed, nerfed, and some were even left behind. Thunderlord, fortunately, was buffed in Year 2. Along with the power upgrade, its magazine was increased from 38 to 49. The arc explosions were also changed to be a 50% chance of happening on lightning round kills. During its time in Year 2, it had some patches as well. On April 12, 2016, the April update, machine guns had their total inventories reduced. On June 14, 2016, fixed an issue where the Year 2 version of Thunderlord wasn't available in the exotic kiosk, and also fixed an issue where exotic machine gun stability was ignoring the base stats for recoil. The base power of everything is increased. Yeah, that's all that happens here. Here, nothing is added or changed to Thunderlord. However, the keen viewers amongst you probably know what is added during this event in Rise of Iron. During the event, Xur's gift contained a present from the Nine with the schematics to Nova Mortis, and giving the quest titled Songs from the Void. Afterwards, Zavala will give you the quest for Abaddon called Hymns of Fire. The only reason I mention these weapons is because they are literally the exact same as Thunderlord, but instead are void and solar. They function the exact same way, sound the same, and play the same. So you more or less get a bonus of 2 other exotics histories as well. Year 3's patch notes does not include anything about machine guns or Thunderlord. They removed the entire weapon type. No machine guns anymore. They removed machine guns from the first year of Destiny 2. Gone. Reduced to atoms. Most special weapons were also now moved to the heavy slot, and with that slot now being occupied by a lot more weapon types, I guess LMGs didn't really fit there anymore, or they didn't want to overwhelm that slot with too many options. Either way, Thunderlord and LMGs as a whole were gone from Destiny 2. In the trailer for Festival of the Lost and Forsaken, the end of the video presents an ambiguous message, and as the festival comes to a close, a mystery awaits us all. We would then later find out about what this meant.
Okay, got your signal? Where'd you end up? Oh my cotton socks. The Cosmodrome. Sit tight.
During the final week of Festival of the Lost and Forsaken, Bungie fully released the Lost Cryptarch questline. This questline had us investigate the murder of Master Ives, the Cryptarch from the Reef in Destiny 1. The quest had you first decrypt engrams, then run a few lost sectors, and after that you finally were able to hunt down the murderer. You then went through the Whispered Falls lost sector, and at the end was a teleporter that teleported you back to the Cosmodrome, which at the time wasn't in the game yet. Going through the mission you got a strange sense of deja vu, with going into the wall and coming face to face with Kickless murderer. The entire section is almost beat for beat the same as the E3 demo showcase, including the reward given, that of course being Master Ives' last engram, which would then decrypt into, of course, Thunderlord, the first machine gun in Destiny 2. The perks stayed virtually the same as in D1, apart from the arc explosions, which are now the main perk of the gun and weren't random anymore, plus the magazine was increased to 62. Patch notes for Thunderlord and machine gun changes goes as followed. On November 27, 2018, fixed an animation issue and increased accuracy. March 5, 2019, damage was reduced against bosses and mini-bosses by 21%. On April 11, 2019, added back the Lost Cryptarch questline with Arc Week Celebration. On September 12, 2019, PvE damage against minor enemies was increased by 25%, and also increased the effects of damage range fall off on this weapon archetype. On October 1st, 2019, Actium War Rig now works with machine guns, also increased PvE damage against minor enemies by 25% again, and increased effects of damage fall off again. On March 10th, 2020, machine guns now do 30% extra damage to Titan barricades. On December 10th, 2020, Thunderlord is missing its scope. Okay. On February 9th, 2021, fixed the missing scope on Thunderlord. Only took 2 months. Also, machine guns camera movement reduced by 9.5% on mouse and keyboard. On August 12, 2021, machine guns now have holster mods. On August 24, 2021, machine guns damage in PvE increased by 20%. On May 24, 2022, machine guns got an airborne effectiveness stat and got a 40% PvE damage boost with a 20% boost to bosses. With the launch of Season of Plunder brought the launch of Arc 3.0, and with that brought major changes to the Arc subclass in general. However, what we're focused on as of now is the update that Thunderlord got. It now has intrinsic overload and has a catalyst now. That being, it now reloads a small amount of reserves into the magazine whenever the lightning strike happens, allowing it to be fired for much longer without reloading or stopping the increase of RPM you get when holding down the trigger. The only patch note between Plunder and the next update is on February 27, 2023. Where machine guns got a 10% damage buff all around, both in PvE and PvP, plus a reserves buff of 50% at 0 inventory and 20% at 100 inventory. With the launch of Lightfall came Season 20, Season of Defiance. Now nothing intentionally was added or changed about Thunderlord here. However, some unintentional shenanigans did happen. This was the season where Thunderlord's lightning strikes would proc twice on Divinity crit bubbles. This led to some pretty substantial DPS increase and gave it some time to shine amongst some players. Patch notes between here and the next update goes as followed. On April 20th, 2023, Thunderlord is involved in the community-voted ornament polls, obtaining a 36% vote but ultimately losing to Witherhoard at 45%. On May 23rd, 2023, fixed the issue with Thunderlord's lightning strikes with Divinity. On January 9th, 2024, machine guns got buffed in PvP by 20%. On March 5th, 2024, machine guns got another 20% buff in PvP. On June 4th, 2024, machine guns get another 7% buff globally. On November 19th, 2024, changed the ammo break amount scaler for machine guns. On April 1st, 2025, machine guns ammo pickup in PvP changed to a flat 22 rounds for machine guns with less than an 80 round magazine. Obviously goes for Thunderlord. With the release of Edge of Fate came a universal change for machine guns, specifically in the reload animations. They had added checkpoints to the reload animation, meaning if it was cut off, it would continue at said checkpoints. Edge of Fate also brought us the Desert Perpetual raid only 4 days later on July 19th, 2025. This raid race was something special since it was now considered the absolute hardest raid race we've ever had. Given how there were so many adjustments to get accommodated to, with the stat changes and new damage systems / scalers, this caused many teams to struggle for hours. Even the very best of the best teams were struggling. The teams who prep heavily and train hard were getting their asses handed to them by this raid. Why do I bring this up? Well, the strategy a lot of teams ended up using for the bosses was to ammo dump their entire reserves into each boss, and switching from dumping Lord of Wolves to, of course, Thunderlord. Yes, the weapon that many high-skilled players keep saying is ass, is bad for DPS, is actually hindering the rest of the team, and is actively giving people hypophosphatasia. The very top of the top percent of players ended up using the weapon that's been there from the very beginning and beyond. Quite fitting, isn't it? Now, the stipulations surrounding Thunderlord could have started anywhere for all we know. What we do know is that it has a negative disposition inside the higher skilled community since forever, and that it's a weapon for the casuals. Then it got buffed / bugged in Season of Defiance, which caused more uproar about it, and now it's being used as a valid strategy in the hardest raid race we've ever had in the franchise. Let's get the final 2 updates out of the way. On September 9th, 2025, fixed an issue where Thunderlord's Catalyst was giving more ammo than intended. On December 2nd, 2025, fixed an issue where machine guns got less ammo than intended from scavenger mods. And with that, that is the final tuning of Thunderlord, and to a lesser extent machine guns. That's its entire timeline completed. And while working on this, Bungie had announced the discontinuing of service updates to Destiny, meaning nothing more is being added after June 9th with the Monument of Light event. I didn't intentionally choose this weapon because of the significance it's had with the history of Destiny, however, fate seems to have made it so. This is the weapon that more or less was there from the start. It first appeared in the E3 demo trailer 13 years ago, and was brought back into fruition with the Desert Perpetual raid. While maybe not the final activity added, certainly the final raid being added, coming around full circle. And who knows, maybe with the second Pantheon they're going to do, Thunderlord will be used again by a lot of players for their clears, thus bringing a very poetic end to this weapon's history. If you want to know my thoughts on the whole situation, I mean, what could I say that wouldn't be repeating what everyone else has said already? It's a sad thing to see, however, not unexpected, unfortunately. I, however, was caught by a bit of surprise seeing the article being posted whilst doing the research for this video, and while I may not really care that much as I've stated how I feel about the current state of the game, I understand for many players it's hitting quite hard, and I can sympathize with that. I'll admit the news hit a little harder since for the research for this I had to go through almost every single update the franchise has seen in the last 12 years, so the feeling of it being the end while going through the actual history of it hit a little bit. But anyways, that's where I'll leave it. If you would like to see me continue this series with other exotics, I'd be more than happy to do so. But if this video doesn't really do as well as expected, then I'll move on. This was the last Destiny related video idea I've had brewing for a while, so after this I want to move on to other games and other content. Let me know what exotic you'd like to see next, and if this is received well enough, I'll continue this series. So until next time, see ya.